start from beginning to create a fatigue load case. So let's delete this guy, the load case, and delete this. Okay. So we have a base load case. That's your inertia based. You just load the weight and tank loads and so on. Okay, you can have that. And then we have the stress IO. We just create we made this run. We have stress IO. So we want to create another load case. So load case number 2 doesn't really matter. I just say no. This is the SFA load case. I want to select the fatigue. I need to say create first. So it's in there. I want to define. Okay, stress type. So there's a couple of stress type. How do you want to evaluate your fatigue using SN curve? In ABS, they prefer using the principal, which is the worst. Right? Sometimes you can say, well, because the bending is all longitudinal. You say, well, the primary X direction is probably the stress that I want to using for the fatigue. So that's another option. You can say, hey, I want to use a global X or a global Y or principal, okay? And operating profile, if you need one, you can import one, operating profile, go to here, sample, hydrodynamics. We have some operating profiles. Okay, define it. Okay, this combatant. So when you import that, it's going to ask, is 0 degree head C? This is the spectral format because we're using the same data format as spectra. When the spectral 0 heading is the head C, but we say no because we have our head C is 180. That's our head C. So we say no. Okay, otherwise your operating profile will be flipped. Okay. Go to define. Now we have another operating profile, and using this environment, you're using this wave spectrum. So long-term crest at 30 years. Okay. And now I need a define group. Say all modules. That's everything. And need to define a SN curve. I can pick a different SN curve. Let's go to the library. This is C, and maybe I want to say D. Okay, and you can modify that. This is standard SN curve. So you say close. Now I have 2 SN curve. Select this one. I want to add this. This is the everything. Okay, and if you have another areas, it's going to complain about because it's a duplicated element. So for example, if we say, I also want this, so they say, oh, you have lots of elements duplicated. Which one do you want to remove that? I say, no, okay, it won't let you add it. We can only evaluate the fatigue for the element based on one SN curve, right? Because you evaluate this element and using this SN curve, this operating profile, and the same element if you using a different. So there's 2 numbers, which one you're going to evaluate. If you have multiple areas, right? This bow area, the SN curve is D, the midship is SN curve is C, and you can do that. So the global screen, you just have that, and you say, okay. Oh, I shouldn't do that. All right, this is a little tricky here. So go to select that. Here, we want to module. ascent curve will add. You want to go back this, then you add. Okay, so it says what's the base load, what's the environment, what's the wave spectrum, what's the operating profile, how many years, this is how many exposure time, and there's an actual time. If your operating profile define docking, right? If the total is 30 years, but you have 10 years docking, your actual time is 20. So when we do the operating profile, we'll show you how you define the docking time. When you have the docking time, it is assumed there's no, the waves mean surface. You never have the wave impact in certain docking place. So you don't incur fatigue in those. Okay, and the stress type and wave spectrum. So define that, then you say okay, you say modify. So now we have two load cases, 1 and 2. You can review that. They should be there. Yes, it's in there. And for equal probability operating profile, this never shows. Okay, it's you're empty. That means you don't have the operating profile. Okay, so now you have that. You can save the model, and then you can run it. So okay, so that's showing the fatigue damage. And review that by go to wave, view fatigue damage. This is toggle. Okay, you can using the query button to query. Okay, that 30 years for that wave is pretty close to fail. Okay, this area is trouble area, so you may want to refine that and to rerun the fatigue.